Well, this is the next section in the MCR SAT training. Simply a training on how to use the MCR investigation part. I will encourage, if you have been following in the training, to actually download the MCR investigation part so that at any time we are discussing, you can always cross-check one or two things that I may be saying in abstract. So, today we want to actually look at invented parts of the MCR investigation part. We are going to suspend this outline, we will resume it by the time we are done with looking at the MCR invented part. We will resume this outline. We have realized that we need to tell people what the MCR is all about. Then we go through the case study. From the case study, we try to see how we can teach people what the MCR maturity investigation is all about. And then we can go into a practical one. We'll see a bit of the practical one, practical section in these remaining videos. But we will resume this outline later on. Okay. Well, today we want to look at part of the invented part is what we call the MCR template. We want to show how the MCR maturity investigation part was developed. It was not just a wishful thought. We want to show us a template from where it came. And that is just what the MCR template is all about. Here is it. You find mind, person, and community, which we have discussed as a worldview. A mind is a worldview, a person is a worldview, and a community is a worldview. And together they might mean something else. And then we have life. We have lifestyle, we have reality. These are what we have discussed sometime during the MCR research futures as a worldview. And when you have this status here, it's trying to tell us that life, could have all of this, to tell us if we want to value anything, as life, it must have all of the futures that we can now find here. And if we want to look at lifestyles, we are basically talking about existence, and it must have all of this what do we call it, futures too. And it goes here too. The same thing go here. If you have reality must be a function. It's more like an assignment, and a reality must equally have these futures. For you to be able to say you've really encounter or experience a reality, you must see all of this in it. So, this mind must have all of this. A mind must have a value. A mind must have certain manifestation. A mind must have certain experience, and it goes the same for the person and the community. We must see all of these in what we are investigating, or in any concept that we have developed. So we have included all of this here because in our developing of the MCR template, we realized that there are complex, interdependent concepts or worldviews. When you talk about an individual status, you may have to use everything you can get on the MCR investigation part. You may have to use everything there, or you may just have to use one, to define life. You may have to use everything to talk about. When you look at manifestation, you may have to talk about everything. And when you talk about time, potential, and purpose, this is about life essential. They are called life essential in the MCR because all life definitions, all life definitions do have time, potential, and purpose. If there's anything without time, potential, and purpose, then it doesn't exist. In fact, even our imagination really have a time duration. The imagination itself is a potential. Well, the purpose of the imagination is just to amuse, or you always find that. So we have argued that you can't have these three together unless you have you can't put time, potential, and purpose together unless you have the futures here, either as concept or as a worldview. And when we talk about existence, we are basically looking at a feast, something that is happening, that is fixed, or something that is flexible, something that keeps changing, or that is what we mean by lifestyle or existence. And you can't have a fixed lifestyle or a flexible lifestyle, without everything we will be showing as invented variables on the MCR investigation part. It's not possible. So, and when you look at this too, we'll talk about realities. Realities are things that happen now. We have emphasized that there could be lifestyle, but there are things that are happening now. Driving may be a lifestyle, but if you have to drive, then it's a reality. It's a function you must perform now and something that is ongoing. So that is really what the template is. So what we've simply what we did on the MCR investigation part is really to pick around. Sometimes when I'm talking about life value, I may have picked something here, something here, something here. When I mean pick, I pick a value here, pick a manifestation here, pick an experience here, pick an experience here, pick a manifestation here. There is no how you will talk about a lifestyle that you wouldn't have to mention perhaps life or reality or mind or person or community or experience is just encompassing. So that is really what the templates try to include. It try to show us that you need all of these features to be able to develop a concept or a worldview. So MCR invented part, or we can just say invented part of the MCR investigation part. And this they are. If I will show us now what we mean by a component part, and then probably in future discussions we will just go through each of them, to have more light. So if you have your MCR investigation part and you scroll down, the item 1, and the item 2 to 3, are component. They are component. And then that's one component, this part of the above. And then this one is another component, personality type. And then destiny manifestation is another component. And then we have self-esteem. So that is really what we mean by component part. Now, if we go back on the table, on the MCR investigation part, if we go back there now, we want to look out for variables. Variables are now what we have here. You go down again, you have, these are variables. These are variables. These are variables. Of course, we have highlighted this one above. These are variables. And then you come down here, these are variables, these are variables. And then you come here, these are variables. These are variables you can get. And then you move down here, mostly what you have here, they are variables, they are variables. So when we go back again here, and we're concerned about element. Element, we can equally say element of variables, or we can say items, of element. So when you go into the part, you will realize that maturity state, maturity position, maturity situation, maturity condition, maturity therapy, they're all element. They're element of maturity. And when you go to right is a variable, but contract, admission, now these are what? Redress, these are all what we mean by what? Element. And of course, when you look at mental deposit, you are going to you will be looking at what we call maturity, what we call it element, and within mental deposit, that is where we have natural knowledge. We wouldn't be going beyond natural knowledge. We'll be looking at what we mean by basic life knowledge, and then we'll be looking at what we mean by creative knowledge. So together, that's what we mean by natural knowledge. We equally be looking at mental initiative. Mental initiative could be maturity initiative. We will explain this as we go on, as we get there. So I just want to show us what we mean by the invented part on the MCR investigation part. Well, we are going to come back and look at this component part. Perhaps we'll pick the component, and then we'll pick one component, let's say maturity, and then we'll look at the variables of maturity, element of maturity, and then items as part of maturity. We still want to say one or two things here. Like we explained, that the MCR template is really where you can develop worldview and concept. If I pick a mind, like I said, mine is a worldview. For me to really be able to develop concept for what I mean by mind, I have to consider all of this. All of this have to be in them. I have to put them all here. They have to be there for you to have a mind. Then you can say, I have a value mind. My mind is manifesting. I have an experience. There is time. There is purpose. Flexible mind. Current. You could have a functioning mind. You could be existing in your mind. You could have a status. It's quite interesting. So that is how you can really develop a worldview and a concept. Later on, we're going to explain how someone can just put all of this component together to have a worldview. We will look at how that is possible, but for now, our quest is to investigation. We want to investigate whether there is a concept and there is a worldview, and we equally want to investigate whether a model worldview is having a a concept, or whether real worldview is having a concept. That's about what we want to do on the MCR investigation part. That's really what the MCR investigation part is all about. We want to investigate, we want to find out if a model worldview or a real worldview is actually having concept, and if in the concept there are certain futures, things we can bring out, and that goes for a person. If you have a model person like this, you can really go back. We can go back here. It's more like saying you have this, and like we say, we want to look at all of this. That is really what the template is trying to propose. That if you talk about a person, you must look at his value, his manifestation, his encounter, of all of this, his manifestation of all of the components, variables, elements, and item, the value of all of them, his status, his existence and his function. That is really what we mean once we pick an individual like this. So we want to investigate, and then this and the MCR template is about the same thing. We have simply picked a maturity value, and this is a destiny manifestation. This is a personality type. This is self-esteem. So we're simply trying to say that if we go back to this man, this is about his value, or this is about his lifestyle, value, or manifestation or experience. And then when you put them together, you are simply trying to really say a lot of things. In this sketch, you may be looking at the maturity of this fellow, or his destiny manifestation of the fellow. And we have always say that the title bar is where you put the worldview, and the remaining part of the part are actually there to give you concept. So you can put life of this man, lifestyle, the reality he's faced with, and this life, you could have concept to explain it. It could just be having destiny manifestation. That's enough for life or lifestyle. That's enough for, what do you call it, reality. And it could just be self-esteem, and it's enough for what? Reality. And this is a model worldview. So what we want to show how you can change, a model worldview to a real worldview and concept. You simply do that by writing a name here. Once you put a name here and you have all that you can get on the MCR investigation part, especially when you have a case study. Now, once you have a case study, like we have in Critical Moment, Mr. Sunday, we will just go into the case study and look out for certain things that show maturity or personality or self-esteem or what? Our destiny manifestation of Mr. Sunday. And that's virtually what we can do. That's virtually what we can do. So, and we said this MCR template is really where the MCR investigation part was developed from. It is where it is developed from. And we can equally insist that you can use this. That means you're talking about this, you're talking about all of this, you're talking about everything here, you're talking about this. No, it's most likely, and that is where you can develop your model, worldview, and concept. It goes on, we said it's the same thing with this. You pick an individual, you may be talking about his status, you may be talking about his existence, you may be talking about his function. So when you talk about his status, you're looking at maturity, personality, destiny manifestation, or self-esteem. When you're looking at his existence, you're basically talking about the same thing, his reality. The reality could just be this, but you can't have destiny manifestation without the personality, without the maturity, and the self-esteem. So that is the kind of principle on the MCR investigation part. It's the same thing here. So what we're trying to say here is that when you have an empty part like this, it's the same thing like this. It's just showing you probably a floating chart going nowhere. This, as we will see, is what we call destiny manifestation. And then when you put an individual here, you're trying to say you have a personality, but going somewhere you are not specified about. As we look at the variables, element, and items, we showed us some time ago where the destiny manifestation on the part could actually stand for what do you call it, gifts. Where you could have gifts, where could you have a function. These three. What it's trying to suggest to us is that on this floating chart, this man may be experiencing gifts, maybe experiencing function, maybe experiencing reward. That's really what this is trying to show us. And of course, we can have 4 other persons on it, and it will still be trying to tell us perhaps this man is experiencing gift, this one is experiencing a function, this one is experiencing reward, this man may be experiencing the whole 3. That's really what we're trying to say here. So we can really put the MCR investigation part under each of them, and then investigate for their maturity, value, personality type, destiny manifestation, and the like. And we can as well remove the floating chart. And this point needs to be stressed. On the MCR investigation part, we are not investigating all four. We are just investigating one. There are certain, in fact, that is why in the maturity investigation, we called it MCR principles and practice of maturity investigation. If we have to investigate all four, there is a term for it, especially on the newer version of the MCR investigation part. That is known as compromise score. But if we're investigating just an individual, we call that maturity score. That is, we want to find out the maturity value, destiny, personality value, destiny value, and the self-esteem value of an individual. Well, that is really what this is all about. We want to find out the maturity value, personality value, self-esteem, and destiny manifestation. So that is what the MCR investigation part is. So what we have here, this component, these are components we have. These are components we have. Maturity alone will have its own variables, element, items, and the likes, and so could destiny. So when you have an individual like this, the likeliest thing that may suggest to you, if you are using the MCR template, is that you may want to pick a personality. Then what is personality? We say this is the hidden, unseen identity of the mind, person, and his community that differentiate one entity from the other. If you see this man anytime, anywhere, you will be able to differentiate him. So his personality perhaps will be able to tell us the type of identity he's having. Well, when we get to where we look at the variables, element, and items of personality, we may probably be able to begin to look at what we mean by identity. On the basic MCR, there are four. The next thing we may see, especially for this fellow, he's walking, and that's a function, that's destiny. So those are the two things that we have used the floating chart to show. Is about the same thing. That what we have there and what we have here is about the same thing we're trying to insinuate. So what is destiny? We say this is a mission within and outside the mind, person, and his community that can be traced to an individual. You can trace this work to this individual. The individual is a personality. The work he's doing is a what? His destiny. Another thing you see is his self-esteem. You could see the way probably he's holding his pen, his sitting posture. You could see perhaps his self-esteem, as we picked the we'll go down and we'll look at the self-esteem, the motifs, and we'll pick the blessing theory. We may be able to begin to look at certain things in his self-esteem. You can use the MCR investigation part to do all of that. We'll explain that when we get there. And I will say self-esteem, this is the heartbeat of the mind, person, and his community. The reflection of who an individual is that cannot be hidden. The real personality. The real personality. Self-esteem is like the flame, the light, the roaring of the train. The roaring of lion. Certain things that. Well, they are the heartbeat of the mind, person, and his community. The reflection of who an individual is that, we said that cannot be hidden. When you meet somebody at the place of his work, you will see his self-esteem, then his maturity, it will reflect in many things. It will reflect in many things, and, when we pick the variables, we can explain how it will reflect. When we pick the element, we can reflect, show how it reflects. When we pick item, we can really show all of that, especially if you remember, on the MCR investigation part, we talked about mental initiative. We talked about mental initiative. I will show us, we'll talk about mental initiative, and self-control. That is what you get when you pick an individual maturity. You're trying to investigate an individual's maturity. You should be able to see, all of that in the individual. And we said maturity. This is the substance and the resources within and outside the mind, person and his community regarded as his value or status. Now, when you see an individual, there is a value or a status, that really, that can be regarded to him, that can be identified with him. When we look at creative, what do you call it, knowledge, we'll be looking at character, culture, and civilization. The dressing here really gives him out. But on the MCR, you find out that we always talk about maturity first, personality next, destiny manifestation or destiny, and then self-esteem. That's the pattern. We felt without maturity, you may not be able to discuss personality, you may not be able to discuss that way. So the idea that you have to research life from a broader way to a more specific way is historical, natural, common anywhere around the world. And the idea that you must have a template from where you can develop worldview and concept to is natural. In fact, you can find it here in critical moment. When you look at Mr. Sunday, we can develop a concept for him. In fact, we tried it. You can develop a concept for who Mr. Sunday is from the MCR template, and then we can do that for Miss Sunday. We can do that for the landlord. We can do all of that, and we can do that for his friend and the boss. So we can do that for church members. We can do that for the choir members and the elders. And we have done this already. We put him on here, and what it suggests is that we're looking at his value, manifestation, or experience, or his status, or existence, or his function. We put a woman there, it's the same thing. So thank you. In our next video, I must apologize. I thought we'll be looking at maturity, but I realize we have to really look at this 4 component first before we now come back. Perhaps we'll pick maturity, and then we'll look at the variables, element, and items of maturity.